What's up, brothers and sisters? Your brother G World 7 underscore D. I have here Ancient Man in Britain by David Mackenzie. Now, I showed you this book before the other day. Alright? But what I'm going to do, I want to talk about something that you need to pick up on. And some of the stuff I've been talking about before. And it's things that what the guy talks about in this book, I totally disagree with. But I always say you can get valuable information even for the biggest devil. Alright? Okay, I'm going to start. I'm going to turn on page 71. And I'm going to emphasize something here. This is why, brothers and sisters, you need to pick up on certain things. Okay, I'm going to show you this right here. Ancient mariners reach Britain. Ancient mariners reach Britain. Alright, so I'm going to go to page 71. I'm going to read a little bit. I don't know how much I'm going to read. I'm going to read some of this information here. And where I'm going to start at. Let's see. I'm going to start right here. Egyptian mariners who dwelt on the Delta coast imported cedar not only from Lebanon but from Morocco, as has been found from the evidence afforded by mummies packed with the sawdust of cedar from the Atlas Mountains. When this trade with Morocco began, it is impossible to say. With certainty. Long before 3000 BC, however, the Egyptians were building boats that were fitted with mats and sails. The ancient mariners, mariners were active as explorers and traders before implements of copper came into use. Here we touch on a very interesting problem. Where were the boats first invented and the art of navigation developed? Rafts, floats formed by tying together two trees or, as in Egypt, two bundles of reeds were in use at very early period in various centuries. At Babylonia, the kufa, a great floating basket made watertight with pitch or covered with skin, was an early invention. It was used as it still is for river ferry boats, but ships were not developed for kufas. The dugout canoe is one of the early prototypes of the modern ocean-going vessel. It reached this country before the Neolithic industry was introduced, and during that period when England was slowly sinking and Scotland was gradually rising. Dugout canoes continued to come during the so-called Neolithic stage of culture era, yet the sinking and rising of land had ceased. That Neolithic man lived in Scotland during the formation of this beach. The 45 to 50 foot beach is proved, wrote the late Professor James Geikie, by the frequent occurrence in it of his relics. At Perth, for example, a dugout canoe of pine was met with towards the bottom of the karst clays, and similar finds have frequently been recorded from the contemporaneous deposits in the valley of the Forth and the Clyde. How did early men come to invent the dugout? Not only did he hollow out a tree trunk by the laborious process of burning and by chipping with a flint adze, he dressed the trunk so that his boat could be balanced underwater. The early shipbuilders had to learn, and did learn, for themselves the value of length and beam, of draught and sweet lines, of straight keel, with high steam to breast a wave of high stern to repel a following sea. The fashioning of a seaworthy or even a river-worthy boat must have been ancient times as difficult a task as was fashioning of the first aerial plane in our own day. And many problems had to be solved, many experiments had to be made, and no doubt many tragedies took place before the first safe model boat was paddled across the river. The early experimenters may have had shapes of vessels suggested to them by fish and birds, and especially by the aquatic birds that paddle past them on the river breast with dignity and ease. But is it probable that the first experiments were made with trees? Did early man undertake the laborious task of hewing down tree after tree to shape new models until the end he found on launching the correctly shaped vessel that it balanced was perfect? Or was the dugout canoe an imitation of a boat already in existence, just as a modern ship built of steel or concrete is an imitation of earlier wooden ships? The available evidence regarding this important phase of shipping problems tends to show that before the dugout was invented, boats were constructed of light material. Ancient Egypt was the earliest shipbuilding country in the world, and all ancient ships were modeled on those that traded on the calm waters of the Nile. Yet Egypt is almost treeless land. There the earliest boats, broad like skiffs, were made by binding together long bundles of reeds of papyrus. Ropes were twisted from papyrus as well as from palm fiber. It would appear that before dugouts were made, the problems of boats construction were solved by those who had invented papyri skiffs and skin boats. In the case of the latter, the skins were stretched round a frame, works sewed together and made watertight with pitch. We still refer to the seams in the skin of a boat. The art of boat building spread far and wide from the area of origin. Until recently, the Chinese were building junks of the same type as they did 400 or 500 years earlier. These junks have been compared by more than one writer to the deep sea boats of the Egyptian Empire period. These junks have been compared by more than one writer to the deep sea boats of the Egyptian Empire period. The Papuans made dugouts and carved eyes on the prows as did the ancient Egyptians and as do the Maltese, Chinese, in our own day. Even when only partly hollow, the Papuan boats have perfect balance in the water as soon as they are launched. The Polynesians perform religious ceremonies when cutting down trees and constructing boats. In their incantations, the lore of boat building was enshrined and handed down. The Polynesian boats was dedicated to the Muo, the dragon god. We still retain a relic of ancient religious ceremonies when a bottle of wine is broken on the bows of a vessel just as it is being launched. After the Egyptians were able to secure supplies of cedar wood from the Atlas Mountains or Lebanon by drafting rafts of large trees along the coastline, they made dugout vessels of various shapes, as can be seen in the tomb pictures of the Old Kingdom period. These dugouts were apparently modeled on the earlier papyri and skin boats. A ship with a square sail spread to the wind is depicted on the ancient Egyptian two-handed jar in the British Museum, which is a pre-dynastic age and may date to anything like 4000 to 5000 BC. At that remote period, the art of navigation was already well advanced, no doubt on account of the experience gained on the calm waters of the Nile. The existence of these boats on the Nile at a time when great race migrations were in progress may well account for the early appearance of dugouts in northern Europe. Who the hell the Europeans got it from? One of the Clyde canoes found embedded in Clyde silt 25 feet above the present sea level was found to have a plug of cork, which could have only come from the area in which cork trees grew, Spain. Southern France or Italy, it may have been manned by the Azilians of Spain, whose rock paintings date from the transition period. Similar striking evidence of the drift of culture of the Mediterranean area towards northern Europe is obtained from some of the rock paintings and carvings of Sweden. Among the canoes depicted are some with distinct Mediterranean characteristics, Negroes. One of the Tegnibai in the Bahuslin bears a striking resemblance to a boat seen by Sir Henry Stanley. Okay, hold on, let me go I'm going to go back to that picture right there. So Henry Stanley, Lake Victoria, Nyanza. Now I'm going to go back right here. And this is a particular boat that you find in over to Africa. Alright. And look who's in the front of it. The boat like a figure, an animal type figure. Look at this. Getting similar to the Vikings, right? But I digress. Alright, then I'm gonna go down further. I'm gonna go to page 126. I'm gonna start reading this. But I'm gonna continue reading this. Read this part. For a long period, there you go. For a long period, extending over many centuries, the migration stream from the continent appears to have been continuously flowing. The carriers of Neolithic culture were in the main Iberians of Mediterranean racial type, these Negroes. The descendants of the Azilian Tardenoisian peoples who had used bows and arrows and broke up the Magdalenian civilization of Cro-Magnon man in Western and Central Europe. This race appears to have been characterized in North and Northeast Africa. So striking, writes Professor Elliot Smith, is the family likeness between the early Neolithic peoples of British Isles and the Mediterranean and the bulk of the population, both ancient and modern, of Egypt and East Africa, that a description of the bones of the early Britain of that remote epoch might apply in all essential details to an inhabitant of Somaliland. I repeat, stroke striking, right, Professor Elliot Smith, is the family likeness between the early Neolithic peoples of the British Isles and the Mediterranean and the bulk of the population, both ancient and modern, of Egypt and East Africa, that a description of the bones of an early Britain of that remote epoch might apply in all essential details to an inhabitant of Somaliland. The Proto-Egyptian Iberian people were of medium stature, had long skulls, short, narrow faces, and skeletons of slight and mild build. Their complexions were as dark as those of the southern Italians in our own day, and they had dark brown or black hair with a tendency to curl. The men had scantily facial hair, except for a chin-tuft beard. These brunettes introduced the agricultural mode of life, and, as they settled on the granite in the southwestern England, appeared to have searched for gold there and imported flint from settlers on the upper chalk formation. I repeat, these brunettes introduced the agricultural mode of life, and, as they settled on the granite in southwestern England, appeared to have searched for gold there and imported flint from the settlers on the upper chalk formation. This is the book Ancient Man in Britain. There's a lot of racism BS in this book, but I want to say this now. I'm going to make this clear. Our people built ships globally. Black people, so-called black people, melanated people, built ships globally. I tied onto America because what I said before, they had more than just some reed papyrus boats. They had wooden ships to do deep sail. And they had various different ships to sail within many different river channel banks. And near those river channel banks, they built mounds and other pyramidal structures that were near the waters because they can carry their supplies and then through the water, coming from the water. Then once they leave the water, they can travel inland. All right. I mentioned before, I just read about they were mining from gold, and that's over in Europe. They were doing that here in the Americas. The ancient Aboriginal black population were mining gold and carving it into stone. This book I showed the other day, showing different stone images and stone structures. In the front of the book, it has like somewhat like a Stonehenge alignment, with some stones out there. That stuff was put up and it was carved and cut. They knew they had the technology of measurements and science. And I talk about boat making, shipbuilding. So-called black people sailed around the world. I showed you before them black people in the Philippines make their own boats. You have black people in Australia who make their own boats. These are Aboriginal blacks who've done this globally. So how come it's impossible for all these Pan-Africans or these Negro Boule so-called historians not to understand that so-called black people sailed around the world? Because they had the technology to sail around the world. To the Americas, to Africa, to the Americas, to the Americas, to the Pacific Islands, the Pacific Islands to America, to Europe. They sailed around the world. Boat making, ship making, different types of boats, different sizes. That was done by our ancestors. And they used science to cut and to carve into stone. Not use no goddamn copper tools, they used iron. They smelted iron. This is old information that's out there, but the reason I knew about it, man, because I started studying, I said, wait a minute, man, some of this stuff don't make no sense, what you're being taught. And unfortunately, some of your black scholars and these niggas doing it, they like that idiot Greg Carr, man. That dude preaching that Pan-African stuff, man. Look here. So-called black people around the world, not all black people are, quote, African. We are a diverse group of people here, even in the Americas. Diverse, different groups of black people. We are not all, quote, Africans. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need to understand that we are Aboriginal indigenous to this planet. Because when we just, like I said this over and over again, when we just said we're just so-called African, then we allow other people to steal our identities in our Aboriginal home. That is why we have lost our identity in America, calling ourselves African American, which we're not no damn African Americans. And then when we tell people that, oh, you hate who you are, no, we love who we are. The only person who's hating who they are is you questioning what we're saying and trying to downplay what we're saying and trying to dismiss what we're saying because it does not go with that narrative which you have been taught, which was wrong. Our people already been here. This is our land. And I constantly hammer this in videos, and I'm going to continue to hammer this because we need to understand this. There's a connection with all these damn lands. These people had a high level of science. These were not no Caucasians. White folks wasn't around. White folks was not around, period, building these civilizations. They've done a lot of lying. They've done a hell of a lot of lying. And unfortunately, many of our people want this line to continue because they want those biscuits that pat in their head or the opportunity to lay up next to them. That's how sick some of these niggas are. I've always said it. They don't want to see no truth, hear no truth, or smell any truth. They want to continue to lie. That's what a lot of these niggas want to do. These boule niggas are about. They are traitorous and they're the damn enemy. And they have pimped our people. Period. This is why it's very important to study your true history. This is why you need to study your true history. This is why I don't listen to people like Consciously, because he don't know what he's talking about. If you do the study and the research, you will know your true history. You will know that so-called black people are beyond being captured in a ship and brought over as slaves. That whole story is asinine to me, and for Negroes to continue to push that, that right there tells me that you're not a highly researched person. You're just regurgitating what white daddy and mommy taught you to do. This is why it's so important to study our full history. It's very important. Our people had the technology to sail around the world. You had the Mali over in Africa. You had the Mali going over in Asia. You had the Mali Malinki over here in the Americas. They were all over. But see, when you don't pay no attention, the Mandan tribe, Malinchi, Saniki, Malinki, Tallahassee, Kankakee, Lenape, Shawnee, A lot of this stuff is similar because these Negroes were all through the Americas. And there's very different types of Negro blacks that were here in the Americas. I want brothers and sisters to put this effort in and study. This information's there, man. But you're going to have to want to study and get it. When you listen to these tired Negroes telling you that you descended of African slaves, and I constantly hear these Negroes on YouTube saying this, man, they're very ignorant. Don't listen to any of them. They say you're an African slave, then they talk about DNA tests. And these DNA tests want to make you a foreigner, make you coming from some other land, make you come from Negro land or the Western Sudan, instead of being here, being Aboriginal to the Americas. Stop listening to these white folks, man. Stop listening to these white folks tell you that you're a foreigner in your own land. And they up there running around with feathers in their head, calling themselves Choctaw Indians, nothing but a bunch of liars. They're liars. And they're compulsive, pathological liars. But I know this, but I'm trying to get you brothers and sisters to understand this, do your own research to see it. Because we've been lied to. We've been lied to. Our ancestors cut stone globally. They cut into stone. They were master masons, master mathematicians, master astronomers. They studied the earth's surface. They've done it all. This is why it's so important to study your history. Please, I'm begging you. I'm really begging some of you to really do the research. Because the information's there. Like I said, Boule Negroes don't want to hear that because Boule Negroes want to lay up next to white mommy and daddy. Boule Negroes wants to produce children that doesn't look like them. Because Boule Negroes hate themselves that much. They have done a lot of damage to our community. They should not be listened to. And thank goodness I had a father who wasn't a part of the Boule. He rejected it. Same thing for my aunts. Thank goodness they reject their Boule stuff. And they could have been in that nonsense, but they rejected it. But that wasn't for them. Thank goodness. And I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, your information is there, but you got to research it. It is there, man. It is so much there. It is so frustrating. I obviously can see it because I've studied it. And I know that it's genetically impossible that any of these non-black groups are aboriginal to any of these lands around the world, particularly in a warmer climate, because their asses would not have survived. I know this. And I know their creations, and I know the history of where white folks originated from, and white folks were not around, and white folks are not an ancient people. They've been lying. But like I said, some of these Negroes don't want to hear the truth because they want to be that protectorate of white daddy and mommy. That's how sick these individuals are. I'm going to keep saying this. They are really sick. And they need to be basically drummed out the community, man. They've done too many damage. Too much damage. Too much damage, brothers and sisters. Too much damage. So I'm telling you now, learn your true history. Research your true history. Understand and comprehend your true history. Do not allow outsiders to dictate you. Remember I said that Akhenaten's daughter was in the British Isles, and Scotland was named after Queen Scotia. And I just read you how the Egyptians sailed into Europe. I just read you that. I just read you that. And this is not no, quote, Negro scholar. Now, this book had a lot of racist BS, but then you were able to weave around it and then get home into information that you can take and gain and use for your knowledge. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, you need to continue to do your research. You've been lied to. You've been totally lied to. And like I said, when Negroes like that conscious Lee guy keep telling you that the first black people did not come here till around 1619 or 1492, that Negro don't know what the hell he's talking about. But unfortunately, he's given a platform by people outside of our community to be a voice for our community, act like he's down, like those clowns with the young Turks, those Negro blacks with the young Turks. They're nothing but frauds and phonies and fakes, man. Because white folks prop those Negroes up only to disseminate, misinform our people, and to disseminate nonsense information, having us chasing a tail that's not there. These Negroes come out of school dumber than when they went in. They've been miseducated, and they've been educated by the standards and ways of their white daddy and mommy. And they've given butter biscuits to continue have us going around at bay to our truthness and who we really are. I'm telling you this, brothers and sisters, now. Let those Negroes go. Stop listening to them and let those Negroes go. And you will be better off, trust me, than listen to Henry Louis Gates lie to you and say that you come from African slaves. This is a joke. Anyone who's telling you that still is an enemy. They have not done the study, or they refuse to do it. They are an enemy to our people. They are a traitor to our people. They're sellouts because they refuse to actually study the information that's out there. Get deeper in the research. These are sellouts. Because if you deny that the original people of America were black, you're denying that so-called black, melanated, copper-colored people, and you denying that still to this day, you are a sellout. Period. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and see yourself as being a sellout because you continue to push an agenda, a destructive form of history telling about our people that was given to you by damn enemies. You are a sellout. Peace and brothers. Peace and love, brothers and sisters.